the Digital Marketing Punkcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the active resistance against bad digital marketing. This sold by a seedy underworld of digital agencies to small business owners across the world. Every episode I try to help you clear up the mysteries surrounding this digital voodoo that we call digital marketing, as we strip away the geek speak and the sales bullshit you may normally hear to give you clear, accessible answers which allows you to empower yourself with your own DIY digital marketing. This is the Digital Marketing Punkcast, and I am Digital Marketing Punk. This is episode number 10, and today we're talking about SEO. And this episode was recording in November of 2018. This week, like I say, we're talking about SEO. I have Ric Rodriguez with me. I'm very, very excited about this episode. I've been following Ric for a while over on LinkedIn, seeing what he's got to say. He's very open and honest about his opinions and viewpoints on SEO. He is extremely knowledgeable about SEO, and he's been working. He's an award-winning marketer for a start, and he's worked with a series of top agencies and worked with some fantastic brands as well. It's been incredible to actually speak to him, and I'm surprised that it's been his first podcast that he's been on. This poxy little digital marketing podcast is the one that he chose to do his podcast debut on, which is very nice, I suppose, isn't it? If you do hear strange noises outside, it's not someone trying to stop me from recording this podcast. It's because I have chosen the world's worst day to actually record a podcast on, because it's November 5th and it's during the evening and everybody is setting fireworks off, so it sounds like there's some kind of war zone outside. But don't worry, I'm safe. It's only fireworks. Okay, so SEO, really important episode this. In fact, it's like one of the 4 pillar episodes that needs to be covered. SEO is really, really important, and for me, it's one of the basis foundations of digital marketing. And I know a lot of people disagree with me when I say this, but when people mention digital marketing or talk about digital marketing, the first thing I always think of is SEO, because it's that foundation, like I say, which you can then build everything off. Some people may think of Twitter, they may think of Facebook, and they may think of paid advertising and stuff like that, and they're all part of digital marketing. But for me, one of the core aspects is SEO, and is sort of built into everything that's done regarding digital marketing. So there's my viewpoint. Whether you agree with it or not is completely up to you. But yeah, SEO is really core and to everything that I do, certainly. And when you are building a digital marketing campaign, that first layer is usually SEO, because if you are not findable, if that's even a word, if you're not findable on the web, then what's the point? And one of the things that people forget most of the time is the core difference between all those things that I mentioned before, Facebook, Twitter, video marketing, on YouTube or whatever. One of the core things that people forget is that Google has one aspect that all those other platforms don't really have, and that's searcher intent, except for Google Ads, of course. But there's that searcher intent involved, which is someone is a lot further down that conversion funnel, which I hate the terminology now because I feel like I overuse it, but they're a lot further down that sort of pathway, as it were, if they are searching for it on Google. If someone's actually taken the time and effort to look for a particular service on Google, then they must have a want, they must have a need for that. And it's one of the things that really annoys me is that I do a lot of I'm part of many sort of networking groups, certainly online and on Facebook, and small businesses that all come together and support each other and help each other and talk through issues and problems and everything else, which is all fantastic. And usually the conversation goes, when they're talking about digital marketing, it always steers down one pathway. That's Facebook, social media organically, or paid social media ads, Facebook and Instagram ads, etc. And that really, really annoys me. I don't know where this perception has come from that these paid platforms, although they're great and they work absolutely, they're not the bread and butter. They're not the silver bullet that people are looking for, and sometimes they don't work, and it's not a viable option for all businesses as well. So if you are actually findable on the internet, on Google, because someone's gone away and searched for an actual search term, a query which is related to your business, then there's going to be that additional value there. They're more likely to convert, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about these paid advertisements, you're paying for the click. You're paying just to get that click. You're not paying for the conversion. If you're found on Google, and I'm not saying it's free, by the way, SEO. I'm not saying you don't pay anything. Of course you don't. You pay in time and you pay in effort, because it's a very long-term strategy to have. But with the paid platforms, you're paying for the interest to get you onto the site, and you still have to make and really convince and make that effort to make that into a converting customer. And that's why you find that organic search traffic that you get to your website is usually the one with the highest conversion rate, 9 times out of 10 anyway. What did we talk about with Ric? Well, you're going to hear it in a second, but we talked about what SEO is, what the foundations of SEO is. We talked about the past of SEO, because it's changed a great deal, even in the past 4 or 5 years, and certainly in the past year it's changed a whole lot. And we're talking about the future of SEO, and some hints and tips thrown in there as well from Ric, about what you can do as a small business owner to go and kickstart your SEO campaign. And there was no way in a million years we're going to cover everything about SEO in one episode, but I hope to bring him back on. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Ric Rodriguez. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, here with me today is a very, very special guest indeed. I believe he is an astronaut. I believe he's a mountain climber. I believe he's some kind of rock star. He's also a stupendously good SEO expert. It is Ric Rodriguez with me here today. I am honored. I am privileged. I can't believe that I'm talking to you. Ric, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. Wow, what an introduction.
I try my best. Ric, introduce yourself. What do you do other than all those things which I mentioned, obviously? I believe that I forgot that you're a scuba diver as well, and a jet setter. I forgot all those. Ric, introduce yourself. What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm an SEO director. I think is the name for it. I'm actually. You've caught me at an interesting point, as I'm technically unemployed at the moment. So I've just left a previous role, and I start my new role in about 4 days' time. But I think the way things go means that I'm unemployed, so to speak, for 4 days.
So you're signing on? Are you on the dole? Is this what happens?
Just a poor SEO. No, not at all. Just spending my time filling it with as many different SEO related conferences as I can, and really sort of nerding out a bit, if I'm honest.
It's good. And jet setting, of course. We were just discussing before this that you've been basically around the globe. You are essentially Richard Branson, aren't you?
Not quite. I don't have. Well, I don't have the shuttle yet, the space shuttle, but not far off.
Yet, he says. Yet. Did we all hear that? He said
greatness.
Yes. All right. Well, fantastic. Are you nervous about the new role? Because I know that you've been in your previous role for a while, and I also know that it's quite a big place that you were at before. So, is this a big step? Is this an exciting step? Is this a change of direction?
Yeah, it very sort of intentionally is. I mean, I was at Crowd before, who are an absolutely fantastic agency doing a lot of cool things in the digital marketing space. But I was working with a client for a very long period of time, really good client, very much enjoyed working with them. But I guess I just got to the point after a certain amount of time where I needed a bit of a change and a sort of a new set of challenges. And where I'm going to now, it's a totally different organization, totally different setup, and the clients I'll have an opportunity to work with are a different industry and sort of, dare I say, the polar opposite, which is kind of intentionally the case. But yeah, really, really excited to get started with the new role.
Fantastic. So you have an excellent, or rather had an excellent title, and suppose will have an excellent title. Crikey, these tenses are going to get difficult. But you are SEO director. Which what does an SEO director do?
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to be an SEO director. So there's
good. That makes it easier.
It makes life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, an SEO director is very much the kind of key point person in the SEO team, and as much as they're responsible for overseeing and kind of setting the tone of the account from a very senior level, bringing forward new ideas to clients, and developing the team beneath you to really kind of one, be passionate and to know as much as they can about SEO. Two, to be tooled up with the most sort of up-to-date thinking and ways of working, and then to kind of help them translate that to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
If that
So
makes sense.
not a lot then. Not much.
No,
not much
not
there.
at all.
No, doesn't sound like it. It sounds like a holiday. It sounds like a holiday.
Yeah.
So you're not an SEO monkey. Let's be honest. You're not a mule. It's certainly. I mean, I believe you could probably write your own job title. You could be SEO commissioner if you wish to. SEO Lord and Savior. Right. Let's move on to what actually SEO is, because that's why we brought you here today to come on to the Digital Marketing Podcast, because SEO, this is the big episode. It's the Digital Marketing Podcast. It's digital marketing is the key foundation of which we all rely and we're all here for. And SEO for me is that founding pillar. It's a core pillar. It's a supporting wall, if you may.
Absolutely.
So it's really, really key. So let's boil this down, because this show is all about for those small businesses, for the entry level, for the people that are just starting out and want to get involved in doing their own digital marketing, and SEO being a part of that. SEO, okay, it's just all about stuffing keywords into page titles and into your content, isn't it? Right? That's all it is.
I thought you might say something like that. If only it were that easy.
If only.
If only, yeah. So I guess SEO in its most basic form is the purest kind of simplest way, and I use the term simplest in as much as you don't have to pay to play, so to speak, but way to be found online by your customers and really anyone that's interested in what you do. I like to think of it as quite DIY, as quite rock and roll. And I know there's a few of my friends that will probably cringe now I've said that, but I think it is. It's great.
It's punk. You said rock and roll. I'm not offended by that, but it's punk.
No, it definitely is. I mean, intrinsically, yes. When it's ensuring that you're helping your website to be visible when someone types in something or searches for something that could be relevant to you. That's like what it is in a nutshell. And how you do that is quite a hotly fought topic, I would say. There's really no one that knows definitively what the answer to SEO is. A lot of people bring it back to this kind of original, let's call it kind of 3-pillar approach, which is having a great website that Google and other search engines can access, or we call that part technical.
Yeah.
Having great content that people engage with and kind of serves as an answer to what people are searching for, and funnily enough, we call that content. And then the kind of more abstract part, which is this piece around links. And links are third-party hyperlinks from a site to your site that search engines see as a vote of confidence in you. And it used to be back in sort of 10, 15 years ago that the more links you had, the more kind of, or the better that search engines trusted you. Unfortunately, that whole kind of way of working was gamed a little bit. People started buying links, and it stopped becoming this kind of hallmark of trust that it once was. So search engines introduced, and Google really led the way on this, a kind of a metric of quality. So not only were your links a vote of confidence in having them, but actually they could be a positive vote or a negative vote. So I guess not a vote of unconfidence, inconfidence, depending on what you had. So that's kind of the fundamental basis of where SEO comes from. It's doing things that satisfy one or all of those pillars.
Sorry, it's really interesting that you mentioned. Obviously, you're talking about those 3 pillars. They are 3 pillars which have essentially remained and have been always kind of been, they've grown, they've moved, they've maneuvered, but they've always kind of been there within SEO in theory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly for the last 3 or 4 years, sort of your intro to SEO decks that I've seen have all contained that as the kind of basis of the of the training, of the teachings of how you approach SEO. And there's sort of a fourth pillar that we haven't yet talked about, which for SMEs I think is really important, because a lot of SMEs have businesses, have locations, have brick and mortar places that they operate from, and that's the kind of the local element, and it's how you appear in Google Maps. It has a slightly different algorithm that kind of is used to determine the results, which essentially boils down to, is your information accurate across all of the different places it can be found? Is it reliable, and can search engines trust it? And then, are you actually local to the person searching for you? If you're in Manchester, you're not going to be visible for someone searching for offices or for things in London. That's a bit of a stretch. Even the best SEOs in the world can't do that.
We wish we could. We wish we could. Yeah. Okay. So there's a key thing. Now, I think a lot of people, when they think of SEO, they disregard sometimes. They disregard the technical. They disregard the content occasionally, although that's sort of had a new wave. The links has always been that sort of key thing, and for good and for bad, let's be honest, Google has been, well, it was founded on the principle that the search engine worked well, and this is why it sort of grew out of the ashes of all the other search engines, your Excite and all that kind of stuff. They grew out of providing good results because of those backlinks. But even now that's very much changing, and that's changing in the way of, like you mentioned, about quality of backlinks and all that kind of stuff. So what is it that you hate the most, probably, is about the current perception of SEO? Because, like I say, the perception is something which is kind of a fundamental issue and problem, I feel, about SEO at the moment. The perception of it can be quite seedy. You mentioned before, no one really knows what the situation is about the algorithm. I always mention it as being, some people think of it as a bit digital voodoo. So what do you hate the most about the current perception of SEO at the moment? Or what do you like about the perception of SEO at the moment?
So I think SEO is in a very kind of transient state at the moment. We are, as SEOs, and the way or the things that we do within the umbrella of SEO are changing very, very quickly. And we talk about, and you mentioned the sort of the seedy kind of negative side of SEO. I guess that's the part that I kind of excites me the least, let's say, and that's because actually what we consider seedy now, let's say, let's call out a tactic like buying links from a place in bulk. Those tactics weren't seedy 5, 6, 7 years ago. Pre-2012, those were the way of doing things, and that was a perfectly accepted and sort of white hat way to do things. I mean, well, probably not white hat, but you get where I'm going with this.
Yes.
But SEO has moved on rapidly, and I would say that there's those that sort of continue to see SEO as that kind of seedy industry that hasn't moved on since back in the day, and there's a lot of people that still continue to engage in certain activities, and you know what, that probably will work for them for the short term, but I can't see them giving them that much sort of long-term growth. But then there are those that kind of buy into SEO. So as I said, to bring it back to the point where we're in this kind of transient stage, 2 or 3 years ago, I think we were still, even though there were those of us within the SEO industry that really kind of believed in the new revolution, believed in the SEO was more about the user and understanding what they're searching for and building great websites that kind of speak to that. 2 years ago, people were sort of less inclined to believe that vision, but now as we get into sort of 2018, we're really starting to see that come to the fore. So negative, I don't like that there are people that still see SEO as this kind of spammy beast, but positive, there are lots of people that do sort of see it as this customer centric, honorable kind of way of working.
So yeah, what you're saying is that rather than looking at it as what would be considered as it's past, and I suppose the CD element is not, like I say, those tactics were white hat, and I should probably explain the terminology there. White hat is sort of, I say it's SEO speak, but it's used in other areas as well. But it's that that idea that it's a good tactic, it's okay to use, Google likes it. There's a terminology of black hat, which is very seedy, Google don't like it, but it can get you results, and there's grey hat, which is just in the middle and confuses the fuck out of everybody. But yeah, there's those two pillars, white hat and black hat. Those tactics, those black hat tactics that probably were absolutely fine a couple of years ago. The problem is that those tactics are still being used now, still being used today. It is very short termism. And the mindset needs to be changed with SEO, is that rather than having those bitter tastes that you had in the past of how you might have been burnt in the past with these old hat, black hat tactics, the actual idea behind SEO is not, and in the name it can be quite misleading, search engine optimization. It does feel a little bit like you're crowbarring things and forcing it and being a little bit, you're trying to break the rules in order to rank higher. The idea behind it is actually SEO in this day and age is about just providing the best possible experience on your website, and you will be, quote unquote, rewarded for that.
Yeah, and it's not just being rewarded by the search engine themselves. I mean, search engines are becoming so intelligent now. They're using algorithms that are powered by machine learning, that is constantly crunching numbers and data to provide an absolutely excellent service to their users. And so actually, when you approach SEO, as you say, the name is somewhat it doesn't do it justice. It's not really, we're not optimizing for search engines anymore. The very best SEOs will be optimizing for the user, because search engines act so much like users these days. And as I say, that's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And that changing of mindset is really, really key, for not just for those within the industry, but for everybody, business owners or, SMEs that are looking to use and utilize SEO or UEO, as I suppose we should be calling it, that idea of changing that mindset is going to be really, really key. It's not the case anymore. The problem, I suppose, is that there's still tactics that still work, and they'll continue to be used, but clients will still be burnt with them and from them. And moving away from that, things hopefully will be better and lighter, and SEO will not be seen in this sort of grey, murky digital voodoo kind of way. And I suppose that's the point. Okay, moving on from that point, the next question I suppose I have for you: are rankings still the metric that you should be using? So what I mean by that, and I should explain for everybody, rankings are, where your website ranks in the search engine results pages for a certain search query. Type in red boots, and if my website comes up third, that's my ranking. I'm third. So is that still the metric anymore? Is that not the metric anymore? Should we be completely disregarding rankings? Is it just old hat to be using rankings as a metric for actual performance?
It's quite a tough question, if I'm honest.
Thank you.
It really is, because Google takes so many different things into account when showing you the results that you see. Whether you believe them or not, there are some great studies out there that show that they take your search history and apply a level of personalization to the results you see. So not only are you seeing the right results for that particular query, but you're seeing tailored results to the things that you're really interested in. They also take things like your location into consideration. If you're looking for, I don't know, restaurants near me, you're going to see a different set of results if you're in London to if you're in Manchester. So actually, where you sit for restaurants near me, depends on where your crawl location is coming from. And that makes using rankings as kind of this performance metric very, very difficult in the way it wasn't previously. I personally, for any sort of reporting metrics, for any ROI type of things, I tend to stick to traffic. And if your traffic's going up, and you can attribute that to positive work you've done. And again, attribution in SEO is relatively difficult, but it can be done. If you can attribute that to the work you've been doing, then you're doing something right. Whereas if you see rankings change, they might go up, they might go down. That might just be because the crawler has come in from a different location. It might be that a different user is using it, or actually, you can't guarantee that the ranking, the position that your rank tracker is telling you is actually the same position you're going to see, or your audience are going to see. So it is quite complex. I would say that rankings. Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry.
No. Go. Carry on. I was going to ask a new question, but you've got more to say.
Yeah, a little bit. I was going to say, just before the sort of rank tracker guys kill me, I actually think the rankings are still useful. I think that they're very much as SEOs, we use them on the micro level. So we used to look at specific keywords and how you're performing for those. In that regard, I don't think they're as useful as they once were. At the macro level, though, looking at categories and looking at sort of average position across categories, using it to understand forecasts, well, look, we're capturing this amount of search potentially at this level. What else could we go? How far could we go? And helping that and using that to kind of help prioritize the work you're doing, i.e., let's say that our boots category isn't performing as well as our trainer category. Well, we know where to focus to generate the best ROI. I think rankings can be really important there as well. So they're not dead. They're not completely sort of unhelpful. In fact, they are quite helpful. But as a kind of acid metric for reporting, I would say traffic's more reliable these days.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key point as well, because I know I run into this problem a lot, working from agency to agency, and you find your your biggest competitor is not another website, or it's not another digital agency. Your biggest competitor is your salesman, and the reason I say that is because you have to get your salesman to understand the mindset. You have to get your salesman to understand digital marketing and SEO. And when a salesman goes out and says, "Oh, well, this key phrase has so much traffic," we can see that from the keyword data. We need to get to page one of this, and you're thinking, okay, well, it has this much traffic, but then you've got to take in, like you mentioned, in personalized search and everything like that. You have to then boil that down into the processes within the business and say, well, you should really be just talking with the client about the traffic that is there. Is the traffic improving? Because I can make these numbers go up and down in terms of rankings, but they might not mean exactly what you think that they mean. And that's the problem now with the many numerous nuances with personalized search and localized search that you were talking about there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to flip it around, as a business looking to start doing SEO, if your consultant or your agency is saying to you, "Hey, we're going to get you onto page one for your most competitive terms," I think you can probably disregard them at that point, because nothing in SEO is guaranteed. There's no specific formula to get you onto page one or into position one for particular types of keywords. What I would look to do is to say, well, actually, you're currently visible for this amount of traffic, for these amount of terms. This is your monthly traffic. Based on where you're visible, we think you can grow that by X%. Again, nothing in SEO is guaranteed, but it's a much more reliable kind of measure for improvement, for success, than saying, I'm going to get you to page one or position one for this specific term.
That's an interesting point. I think a question that's come out of that is, for me personally, is, let's say, we're talking about a small business here that wants to start looking at ranking for a small handful of key phrases for, we'll take red boots again as an example, but red boots, and they, how should they be looking at then starting to understand how to rank for that term? Because you're absolutely right that there are different nuances for every single key, for every single search term. So how do they start looking at, okay, I have my website and I can look at this top 10 of results. How do I then start looking at how to improve my own page or category of pages in order to start ranking for that? It's a really broad question. I've made it sound really simple. I realize that's difficult.
Not at all. So I think the first thing to do, and again, this might be a bit of a cop-out answer, but is always to look at the underlying platform. there's a load of so technical SEO should always be the basis of any or the sort of the starting point of SEO, of any SEO strategy. Why? Because if you're doing it badly, if something is blocked, if something can't be understood, that's easily fixed, or more easily fixed than the more subjective side of SEO. And actually, it can be the case of, as simple as something is turned off, i.e., your pages aren't ranking or aren't being indexed, to being turned on. Suddenly they are, and suddenly you might get some visibility for that. I think for a term like red boots, I worked a little bit in e-commerce and I worked a little bit in fashion retail, so I know that red boots is quite a high volume search term and very, very competitive. If this business only sells red boots, the first thing I would do is to look at what else people are searching for around red boots. What is the broader kind of longer term, longer tail keywords? Those are the keywords that are sort of, red boots might be the one that everyone is searching for, but you might find that people are looking for how to style red boots or what to wear with my red boots. Those in themselves then give you ideas for content. And I guess this kind of comes onto the question of where I see SEO going in the future. I think we're moving from a purely kind of links-based, keyword-based sort of system. And in fact, we moved from that years ago to a kind of a system that looks at, I guess the phrase is entities, or looks at how things and different ideas and concepts are connected to each other and to the rest of the world. So to take that sort of more literally, if you are a red boots company, if you start writing about red boots and only about red boots, you might show and you might convince crawlers that actually, you are a red boot seller, but you're not going to give them any kind of trust or any belief that you are the red boot seller, the right one that should be ranking. The way you do that, in my view, start building out your content, start building out content that users are looking for. So not just anything, but to start filling your red content folder with relevant, useful stuff that positions you as the authority on all things red boots related. To start with, you're not going to rank for red boots if you're a brand new site and and you are looking for a highly competitive, high volume term. But you could start achieving visibility for some of the longer tail stuff. But the thing is, the more longer tail stuff you add, the more you build up this kind of, let's call it content repository, the more search engines will believe you, will trust you. And then you'll get to that tipping point where you have the right amount. And that's such a subjective point where you may be able to start being more visible for more competitive things.
So it's interesting because there's always this mentality I know from taking on new clients, that you sometimes the client will have this mentality that, well, we need to go for the big terms, we need to go for this that's got so much search traffic, but in fact, like you just said, the logical method of actually doing this is to go, okay, well, what's perhaps those terms which have the lesser of the traffic there, but are still nuances of those terms and are maybe semantic variances of those terms, and then look at optimizing for that and building that content portfolio, which is not wasting time. That's not just getting the low-hanging fruit, which is a term which sometimes really annoys me, but it's building up those foundations to that big term, which you might not even have to purely focus on. It might come organically from this work of the more longer tail key phrases.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, everyone wants to be visible for the really high value search terms because they've got a high amount of traffic, and even if your conversion rate stays at around 3 to 4%, the more traffic you drive, the more conversions you'll be able to achieve just by absolute volume. But actually, to try and rank for a very competitive term is difficult because there's lots of sites wanting to rank for it. The higher value the term is, the more competition there is by its very nature. So yeah, absolutely. The best way, in my view, to start being visible for the higher value stuff is to convince search engines you are worthy of it, you are credible, and the only way you can do that is by starting out at the bottom and trying to get to the top that way. Does that mean that no one can do it and no one can come in from day one with a page about red boots and rank? I mean, of course they can. There's always going to be examples. That's the beauty of SEO. There is no definitive answer to how it works and how things should be. But it's a good strategy to follow, and it's one that I've seen work to quite a lot of success.
Yes, you say it's the beauty of SEO, the fact that we just don't know, like you alluded to right at the very start, we just don't know what the rules are to this game, which makes it really, really crazy. If you think that, and it is a game in some kind of ways, it's almost like an investigation, it's a murder mystery in a weird kind of way. Is the fact that no one really knows except for this big server room somewhere in America in Google headquarters. No one knows, well, no one person certainly knows what exactly goes on in that algorithm. No one exactly knows what the rules are for ranking on Google. It's a really strange concept to think that it's other people's jobs to then sort of figure out how to just essentially not guess, but figure their way around that to make websites rank better. It is, if you sort of take that broad view of it, it's a really strange sort of thing to do.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, yeah, to your point, it is a bit mad. And that's why I think, and to be honest, that's why I'm kind of, I believe the role of the SEOs in business is changing. Before we were very much trying to figure out what the secret sauce was to, what that special formula was to rank. Now search engines have got way more advanced, way more, based on sort of automatic decisions and robot intelligence, so to speak. And so actually trying to understand that special formula really it doesn't help you, because that special formula is going to be different for every keyword, every industry, etc. So I think the role of SEOs is very much changing. We're becoming more about because we've had to learn and because we've had to adapt. We started out as guys that optimized sites, that made sure the fundamental kind of technical things were in place, and then built links. We then got into digital PR. We then got into more kind of deeper down the technical rabbit hole, so to speak. And I think at this point, we are more like facilitators within business. We're the guys that hook up different teams, which is quite, I actually think it's quite amusing, because 5-10 years ago we were sat very much outside of the digital marketing mix. As you said, doing our voodoo. Business would give us money, and we just go and do our magic and come back with some results. But actually now I think we are probably some of the best placed people within any organization to connect sort of disparate teams up, particularly across marketing and IT.
Yes,
and to sort of succeed that way.
Absolutely, and it's it's not just marketing and IT. It's when you're thinking about sourcing content, it's hooking up customer service, it's hooking up with sales representatives, because they know the content and they know the data that's required and necessary. It is a really fundamental. It is like pulling all the strings in every single department. Okay, let's
100%.
Yeah, let's go back to sort of the SEO here and now. So we've talked about the past and moving on towards the future. I think the key point I want to get across here is the fact that there are the three key pillars, the four key pillars, like you mentioned before, and they are fundamental and they shouldn't be forgotten. And sometimes that can happen when things in SEO change so quickly and so fast. Sometimes it can be very easy to get distracted and go after the shiny thing and go after the new thing, or Google has said this and whatever it is. So except for the priorities that we know now, regarding those four pillars, well, I suppose then what are the priorities now in SEO within the nuances of those four pillars? So what are the things that we really should be looking at from a technical standpoint for SEO on a website?
Well, this is where I think actually I'm going to somewhat disagree with you, because the four pillars have been the status quo for a very long time. But actually, I think we are now at the beginning of this kind of change in the digital ecosystem, this kind of revolution of SEO, so to speak, where I think we are going to change the rule book up a little bit. There's a really big trend at the moment around featured snippets, around ranking for position 0. You're seeing things like voice search come to the fore, and I think those kind of technologies and those things are very important. Let's bring it back to sort of the sort of what's changed. In 2010. when you wanted information, the smartphone had been around for a little while, but really you were going to a search engine to find the answers to your queries. Fast forward to 2018, if you want a cab, you don't Google cab or taxi companies near me. You go to Uber. If you want a place to stay, you look at Airbnb. And search engines have got this, and this is all facilitated by the fact that our technology's got better, smaller, and kind of more. It's kind of now always with us in the shape of a mobile phone. Search engines have now got this kind of competition they never ever had, and that in itself brings challenges. It brings new threats to them. Your Uber app isn't just doesn't just show you the nearest cars to you. It knows who you are. It knows what your preferences are. It knows where your home is. You don't have to type that in. You just click "Take me home" and you go. And that's a service that search engines have struggled to provide. That's why we're seeing this personalization come in, to the point where users are they. I don't want to say they're getting lazy, but they kind of are. We don't want to have to search 10 different websites for an answer if we can get it immediately.
Absolutely.
If we can ask a voice device, what is the answer to X? We will do. I actually don't think voice is this. I believe it's important. I believe it's growing, but I don't think it's going to be this big trend that everyone says it is. However, I think the underlying tech that powers voice, the structuring of information, the creating of kind of solid information architecture, i.e., making sure that your website, or actually, let's just take a website out of it, make sure that the information you put online is presented in a way that's logical and that these data feeds can understand. I think that's going to become already has become important and will become even more important in the future. I think the company Yext call it digital knowledge management, but we can see the outputs of it in a lot of different touch points in SEO.
So does this make SEO therefore more difficult? Does this make SEO difficult for the small business that perhaps doesn't have the budget to go and find these the expertise required to then go and become competitive in their market?
Well, I mean, you said we SEOs need something to do with our day, right?
Yeah.
I actually think it's the opposite. I really do. I think for the first time, you really don't need the massive marketing budgets to compete. Previously you needed great content writers that could come up with really big campaigns that could then go out and get the attention of influencers and build links to your sites, and that came at a cost and a requirement, and had a very sort of high barrier to entry. But actually, when you bring it down to information, Google provides an amazing tool, which is this Google My Business platform. As a small business, you can set up a website, you can provide Google directly with information about you, and not just your business information, your opening hours, your name, your address, your phone number, but more. They're adding more and more features every day. I wouldn't be surprised if very soon you're able to transact through Google My Business. Very recently they announced that you will be able to follow businesses directly in search results. So a small business that wants to put out an offer directly to you can do that. So I think if anything, it's the changes are there to support small businesses and to remove that barrier to entry that might have once existed. And I think it's fantastic. I'm a really big fan of Google My Business.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, isn't it, which is almost often forgotten, or it's a side thought. Google My Business, because they already have it and they forget about it. Don't optimize it. Don't work on it. And certainly in the last even in the last 6 months, it's changed dramatically. Be able to write posts on it and keep, it's almost like a social media for your business now. Its own little channel that will go onto search results for branded terms, and being able to do those posts. It now adds descriptions. You can list your services. It's a really powerful tool now.
Yeah, it really is. And remember, it can be visible in search, and this is the bit that I think people forget, because they associate it primarily with maps results. Yeah, okay. You, as a brick and mortar business, you do need to be a brick and mortar business in its current sort of format to utilize it, or at least have an office. This is the thing. If you're a business that serves clients, that people come and see you, even if you're not a shop, for example, that's what we tend to associate with kind of or a restaurant, a commercial property, you can still be involved. You can still claim a listing, and that would probably be, if you're a small business, my number one piece of advice is, if you haven't already claimed your Google My Business listing, absolutely do complete the information and keep it up to date, because I think that there's a lot of great changes coming to that platform, a lot of new features that they're only going to make it better.
Yes, and hopefully it doesn't go down the same line as Google Plus, but I doubt it will.
Well,
I doubt it will.
Well, it's very interesting. I was actually reading. I absolutely love Audible, so I was listening to a book called How Google Works. I thought I'd get Google's take on how they work, see if I could find any secrets. And they talk about, that they don't really have a culture of failure. It was a case of, if something doesn't work out, they lift the things that were great from it and put it into something else. And I actually think what we've seen from the demise of Google, from Google Plus, they've taken elements of that and already kind of put the stuff that really worked into Google My Business. And I think, the ability to follow and to have the Discover feed integrated into the main kind of search experience, is a fantastic example of how they do that. So yeah, Google Plus might be dead. I'm going to say I'm not going to miss it too much. I never really used it.
No.
But I think the best parts of Google Plus will live on, however that might be.
It's also really interesting to see Google, certainly in Google I/O last year, their sort of annual conference where they don't talk just about their Pixel phones. They actually talk about cool stuff which they're doing.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to see their developments with the Maps platform as well, and how that's, again, they're really trying to intertwine that with not only their artificial intelligence, but the Google Maps and the Google My Business platform and things like that. That was really interesting to see as well. Just that further development. How much, and I'm going to really put you on the spot now, how much of an impact do you see this AI Google Assistant? Obviously, we know about machine learning taking up a lot of the Google algorithm now, in terms of its feeding. I believe the last figure I read was like 30% of search queries, and feeding them into machine learning and churning up results from that. How much do you see that impact changing how SEO functions and works moving forward?
See, I think that's the kind of the fundamental point. I think, people are getting information, and Google Assistant is just one example. People are going to Amazon's Echo, they're going to to Alexa, to Siri. Siri's going to get better, by the way. There's no way Apple can leave Siri being as bad as it is right now.
Do you think?
Honestly, I've got an Echo device. I've got Apple everything, and I've got to say, I can have the startings of a decent conversation with my Alexa device. I can't talk to Siri very, very well. Just Siri gets my name wrong. It's that bad, right? They can't leave it like that for so long. I'm sure we'll see something happen soon, but I think it is going to be fundamentally important. I take it back to this kind of point around digital knowledge management and how you structure your information. This information comes from somewhere, whether it's scraped off the web and collected, or whether it's passed through a third-party platform. It's got to come from somewhere, and I think for SEOs, that's where the future lies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll need to create technically sound websites that allow sort of crawlers to pick up this information, and we'll need to create websites that structure the information correctly. So there's a lot of work being done at the moment. A lot of people talking about schema markup or structured data. Mm-hmm. All that is really, if we take it back to its fundamental points, is tagging up bits of the code to tell data feeds specifically, and search engines are, of course, data feeds.
Yes.
What this bit of text or what this bit of code actually means in terms of the world. So it might be your telephone number that you tag up with telephone number markup, and that's just telling Google, if someone wants to call my business, that's the number to use, or telling Alexa devices, etc. Content, of course, is going to be important, because content has information in it, and information can be used to power this thing. This is where maybe I'm going to be a little bit more radical, but I think links don't really have as much of a place in the world of information as they once did. Mm-hmm. I think links were a really good way of understanding how important or how trustworthy a site was, based on kind of third party, votes of confidence. Intrinsically, that's what they were, which is I, as a site, say this site is good, and if enough people say it's good, then it must be. But as Google and as Bing and as search engines, and not just search engines, all of these kind of data feeds get more and more intelligent. They're going to understand the concept of someone being an authority on a topic just from the content and the information they can provide, not just from other people saying so. So yeah, I think assistance and all of these kind of things are going to be really fundamental to how we do SEO in the future, and are going to change what we do massively.
I think you make a really good point there. In the time in a time before machine learning and computers having the ability to do that, links were a very good way of being able to establish quality, a quality of a piece of content. Now that we don't require that, or Google don't require that, it makes it a little less redundant. It makes links a little bit more redundant. Let's be honest, we never really saw the integration of social metrics or social engagement as much into the algorithm, in inverted commas, as we thought we might do 5 years ago or 6 years ago. We never really saw that come through. So are we really going to be sad that links don't really become I hate this term, a ranking metric? I know I probably won't be. It's sometimes an absolute pain in the backside.
Yeah, I mean, look, links were fundamentally what set out Google from its competitors back in 2004, when it really became, that started to become the giant that it is today. But the world has moved on since then. And there's lots of other ways to prove that you are an authority and that users will want to engage with you. And I take it back to this point that the role of the SEO is fundamentally changing. We are less people trying to tick specific boxes and trying to hit a set of goalposts, optimized towards a certain thing, and more kind of involved in building great websites, providing lots of useful information and content to users, and then in turn to crawlers. And I think that, what's really interesting here is machine learning is fundamentally moving the goalposts, because when someone searches for something, or when someone asks a voice device a question, they're getting an answer, but that answer is then being taken on board. It's then being learnt about, and it's fundamentally changing what they'll serve to users in the future. So you've then got to ask the question, well, how do you optimize towards something that is constantly optimizing itself and constantly changing? And I've got to credit Dwayne Forrester with this way of thinking, because I was with him a couple of weeks ago. So he's a VP of strategy, I believe, at Yext. He promised to blow my mind as far as voice search is concerned, and he really did, because that as a concept is mad. In the SEO industry, you're so used to optimizing towards something, to getting these factors, or okay, we understand there's more than 200 ranking factors, but you're so used to working towards something, and the concept that there isn't something to work towards, but actually you're just trying to do enough to be better than your competitors, or do enough to convince users that you are more useful and more reliable than your competitors. That's a hell of a thing to take on, right?
Absolutely, it really is, and it is a good point, because you can't optimize what's being optimized, because the goalposts are constantly moving. Is this how our mindset should be then, as SEOs, or as people that want to start optimizing our websites to be more visible? Should we be thinking, do you know what? Forget all this nonsense. Although the technical stuff helps, but at the end of the day, the technical stuff is just there to make our websites more accessible. It makes things a little bit more agreeable. It means that things are faster, they're quicker, so which helps users. Should we be forgetting just trying to please this big machine and just be thinking, how am I going to please someone that lands on my website?
Certainly, all the signals that we've been given by Google recently, all of the fundamental changes they've put forward, the speed algorithm, or the speed ranking factors, I should say, the mobile first index, all of the change, even developments to Google My Business, in my view, are fundamentally user-centric. And one of Google's vision was to provide visions at the start was to provide a great experience for users. They are, in my view, doubling down on that. And so yeah, you know what? You probably can still do things that worked previously. You probably can still go out and build a load of links. You can build lots and lots of content to capture every single possible permutation of keywords that you might have. But the longevity of that tactic, and we talk a lot about sustainability in SEO. We aren't just, for a long time, we've been looking at improving our tactics, not just to be important now, but to be important in the future, which for a business which is constantly changing, that's quite a challenge. I think from a sustainability point of view, you're never going to go wrong if you are fundamentally doing things that work for your users first. That's always been Google's mission. And if anything, pleasing your users cannot be a bad thing, regardless of what happens with your search rankings or with your visibility. The difference now is Google is really empowering webmasters and businesses to reap the benefits of doing that in ways it never did before.
Absolutely.
At least in my view.
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. And, half of my battle on a day-to-day basis now is trying to educate, the salespeople that work above me, trying to educate clients and trying to educate small business owners that is the mindset that you should be having. Is if you appease a user and you're making your user your focal point for everything that you do, then you're not just trying to help yourself in terms of your traffic and in terms of SEO and ranking better. You're helping your user as well. At the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to convert. They're going to call you. They're going to create leads. They're going to buy product. At the end of the day, that's exactly what's going to happen. My almost final question: if you were sat in front of a prospective client, a client that's coming on board with you now, and they're a small business or a medium-sized business owner, what would be the first thing that you tell them about improving their SEO? How would you put that across to them and talk them through that kind of process of improving their organic traffic through Google, Bing, whatever?
Sure. So I think the first thing is to reiterate the point that there are no guarantees in SEO. Obviously, what we're doing is there to improve our clients' performance, but we're not going to turn around and say, or I'm certainly not going to turn around and say, look, tomorrow you're going to rank in position 1 for your highest value term, because actually, as we've already talked about, that's quite a subjective thing. Understanding what position 1 is in itself quite subjective. Technical is still important. Doing things that allow crawlers to access your site is really important. Structuring your information in a way that helps data feeds understand it, again, is really important. That in itself, for a small business, could be the difference between setting yourself apart from your competitors. Your competitors aren't doing that. If they aren't doing everything they can to help these data feeds understand what you're about, then that might be a hugely beneficial thing to do in its own right. We then talk about, what are you actually trying to achieve as a business? Are you trying to achieve people coming in store? If so, have you got a Google My Business listing? Are you on all of the kind of major third-party sites like Yelp, like TripAdvisor, etc.? Because if you're not, hey, these data feeds are getting information from somewhere. Yeah. They're not just getting it from Google and from websites. They're getting it from everywhere on the web, and it's important that you are. If you're not, if you're trying to, get signups, you're trying to get conversions. What does your website say about what you do? How do you position yourself? What sort of content do you have? Are you an authority? Are you talking about what you're doing, extensively and in a way that provides genuine value? There's a real difference between writing lots of content and writing lots of good content.
Yes.
Lots of content is taking any keyword that you think is relevant and trying to have a page for it. You can do that. Probably not going to help you too well, because that content isn't going to serve a purpose. You're just going to have a lot of dead space there, really. But having a lot of killer pieces that your audience is looking for. And I think you made a great point earlier. It is about linking up with your sales team, linking up with your CRM teams, linking up with your CRO teams to understand, who are our customers? What are they looking for? Yeah. What sort of questions do they ask when they're returning our goods, and how can we prepare them for the future? Or what more information we put on site? All of that kind of creates great content that users will find useful. this is the thing. We talk about content being this, high budget, difficult thing. It's not. It could be as simple as having a page on your website that talks in plain terms about what your returns policy is and why that's important.
Yeah,
that could be useful.
It's not it's not a manufacturing line of content that you need to be thinking how you should be thinking of it. Even though some people may tell you that is the case, you do hear it a lot. And I was going to bring this up, which is just write content, and Google will love you for it. That's not the case. It's sometimes just one bit of really good content, that question that the entire audience is all thinking. Your entire audience is thinking but not asking, but they will put it into Google. That one piece of content could be an absolute goldmine for you, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think FAQ content, frequently asked questions, can be a really powerful piece of really, really powerful piece of copy that you have on your website, because your sales guys, your customer service guys are going to know what they're constantly asked. And actually, as a business, think about it operationally. If you have to spend less time answering frequently asked questions because people already know the answers, you're going to spend more time helping them solve the specific problem they have and providing a better service, or spend time sort of instilling the benefits of what you do rather than just answering the basic stuff. People will Google that stuff, and if they can't find it, they're going to call you. And I don't think you're going to want, although there is I say I'm not personally a salesman, but I'm sure you would rather, as your sales team, answer questions about why your product is great for someone, and get into the sort of the nitty gritty of that, then sort of answer the broader stuff that people could just solve or just find the answer to. The other side of it is, if it's a generic enough query, even before they've called you, they might have found the answer on a competitor's website, which would be yourselves dead in the water. So I think an FAQ is a really, really powerful way to sort of take the values of writing great content and apply it to any business.
Absolutely. Rick, I was mad to think that we'd be able to cover the entire breadth of SEO in one podcast episode, and there's no way that I thought that was going to be achievable. I do have one final last question, and it's always the question that I end with. If you had to pick that one hint, that one tip, that one, and I hate to say it's not a quick fix, but I don't mean a quick fix. That's a horrible thing to say, but that one little tip that you were to give someone, some friend, business owner that's come up to you and said, please, Rick, I know you've been into space and you've climbed every mountain on the globe and you jet set across the world, and I'm very jealous and envious of your lifestyle. I just want a glimmer of hope to look at this. I just want one tip from you, Rick, please. What should I do about the SEO on my website? What would you tell that poor bastard?
So I think it's as simple as read as much as you can. There's a lot of amazing thinkers out there, and a lot of amazing SEOs out there. And as a community, we're very open and we like to share a lot. We're not afraid to talk about why things have been successful. There is no silver bullet to SEO. There is no specific one size fits all solution. And as a business, you need to make up your own mind about what you do. But there's a lot of great guidance out there to help you. And if you're not soaking that up, then that's where I would start. That's the one tip I would give. And
just off the back of that, my tip would be go and follow Rick every platform that he's on, because he is very open. And although he says the community is very open, some of them are very closed off. I discovered recently, I got into a bit of a tiff recently about asking for just general advice. Go and follow Rick. He is very open. He's very, very good. He's an absolute. He is a book in himself. In fact, he's a series of books. He is the Encyclopedia Galactica of SEO and all of its nuances. There's no doubt about that. Rick, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before you leave, please tell us where we can find you, how we can follow you, and how people can just connect and chat to you.
Sure. Firstly, you're very kind. I appreciate it. I think I'm most active on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is just / I think it's Ric P. Rodriguez. But to be honest with you, if you follow anyone, you'll probably see me commenting here, there, everywhere. I tend to comment on a lot of digital marketing punk posts anyway.
You do. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. yeah, I'm on Twitter as well. So you can find me at Ric Rodriguez _UK. I do have a website, so I'll be launching ricrodriguez.co.uk very soon, but the content on there's a bit shit at the moment because I'm still building it. So please don't judge my SEO on my current website, I beg you. I'm thinking about the user.
Yeah, listen to what I say, not what I do.
At least for now.
Ric, thank you so much. I hope to bring you back on for another episode, maybe about a particular niche or nuance of SEO in the future. It'd be absolutely fantastic to have you back on. But for now, thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you for having me. I'd really like that.
And it's been an absolute pleasure. And now I've met my my man crush of the year. Thank you very, very much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ric. Thank you so much to Ric for coming onto the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. As you may have noticed, he was getting ever so slightly more and more uncomfortable with my constant sort of compliments, which were slightly creepy, I agree. But I do hope you enjoyed listening to the interview. I know Ric enjoyed being on the show as well, which is awesome. I do hope to get him back again someday to talk about a particular niche of SEO next time around. If you do have any questions about SEO, don't forget that you can get in touch with the show as well. So I would love to hear your questions and queries and feedback about the show. So don't forget, get in contact with us. You can email us digitalmarketingpunk.co.uk. You can also connect with me all across social media. You can find me at facebook.com/digitalmarketingpunk or on Twitter with @punk_digital. Also on Instagram @digitalmarketingpunk, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for Digital Marketing Punk and you'll see my beautiful mug appear in front of your very eyes. You couldn't ask for any more than that, could you? It would also be great if you haven't already done so to subscribe to the Digital Marketing Podcast. And if you do really like the show, help me out and show your appreciation by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. That'd be awesome. I hope you will join me on the next episode of the Digital Marketing Podcast. I can't wait for it already.